We are, and now we're live. Look at that. And yes, we're both green today.
Yeah,
You look like
it's like,
Santa hat.
it's like Irish Day.
Your little Santa hat. That's awesome. I'm surprised you even have hats like that living in Florida.
It was a gift. You see what it is,
Oh,
right?
uh-uh.
It's
I do not.
Mexico.
Oh, okay. Well, that's their colors, so I get that. All right. Yeah, I don't know why. I guess whenever I see those colors, I just automatically think Christmas. That's how commercialized Christmas is now. Anyways, let me know when you's ready.
It's still Christmas out here, by the way. Whoa.
Is it really?
Well, all the lights were lit up last night when I pulled up when I arrived.
Right.
People still had their Christmas lights up, probably because they can't get outside and take them down, so they might as well leave them on because it's snowing, man. So
Right.
it's like we're just gonna leave the Christmas lights up and turn them on. Then we're just
Sure.
gonna have an extended Christmas out here in Denver.
Yeah. My wife just took the tree down like a couple days ago, so
Yeah,
that was lazy.
mine was still up when I left. Man. So I'm sure by the time I get back, it'll be down. But it was still
Sure.
up.
Right on. Okay, let me go ahead. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
All right, let's do it.
Shut up and sit down.
Boom. I was gonna try to take a drink when that was happening, and I looked at the time. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time.
It's too fast.
It's 11 seconds.
I love it. I love
it. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. This is our Dharma Time Hour where we talk about spiritual things, and he is, as always, the Dope Doctor, and I am the Dharma Guy. Welcome.
Yo. and I have a spiritual. See, you don't see it, Trinity, but I am sitting here in Denver, Colorado today, and out there are the Rocky Mountains, and they're all white, and there's snow on the ground everywhere. It's so beautiful looking out this window, man. This is a beautiful, very spiritual sight that I have.
I love
right
it
here.
I miss it.
Yeah,
it's in my blood, man. I'm a Rocky Mountain boy.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, and meanwhile, I'm stuck with hot weather and no scenery. I don't even have the benefit of living on the beach.
Mine's 18 degrees, man. 18 degrees.
Oh, that sounds so great, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, everybody thinks you live in Florida. We all live in like the Keys. I'm like, no, man. I'm like an hour from the beach.
And they got my.
Oh yeah, see Mexico. Oh, and I don't have a jarrito right now. I need to go grab one.
Isn't that weird how I could tell that you drank a jarrito yesterday because you said something in Spanish? I was like, I said, you drank that jarrito today, huh? You get that.
That's right, man.
You drink it, and all of a sudden you started speaking Spanish.
Ole, man. We do matos, man. And for some reason I kept watching Telefutura. I was waiting for Sábado Gigante.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, all right, so let's get started, man. Well, first off, thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, if you would like to join our discussion, you can catch us live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch under Dope and Dharma, and you can participate in said discussion by putting your comment down there, and we will read it live. And if you choose to just listen to us either now or at your own leisure, you can do so on any of the major podcasting platforms by looking up Dope and Dharma. And of course, you follow us on social media and you can see everything that we're doing. You can see him posting probably from Denver.
Yep, I'll post something later.
I'm sure you will, and I'll be jealous because I miss the mountains and the snow a lot.
Yeah, you will see what I see,
Yeah, my best vacation I've taken in years is the one we went to Jackson Hole. It was food for the soul, man. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk about today, and that is being honest. Being honest. So we're going to talk about being honest, but we're going to have to at some point address the fine line from being honest and just being an asshole. There is a fine line.
You say when people say I'm just being real?
Yeah. But I do believe honesty is the best policy, right? Like I think that too many times people will bounce around the truth in an effort to either not hurt feelings or keep yourself out of trouble or uncomfortable moments, not realizing that you're already in an uncomfortable moment and all you're really doing is prolonging it half the time. Right. And so, and I do think that there's times, right? Like there's, there's brutal honesty or being honest, if you will. You say brutal honesty is a addiction or recovery phrase, but I think we've all heard it in various different things. But I hear you. I do think that there's a difference too, not only from being honest and being an asshole, but I also think there's a difference between um, unnecessary honest, right? Like if my daughter draws me something and it looks terrible, is it really good for me to be like, oh, that's such a terrible thing you just did there? You know, no, it's not.
Wow, you picked that of
Well,
all
that's just the first thing that popped in my head.
that's my point. That was
I'm in my daughter's room.
I know.
I'm literally looking at all her stuff. So.
That's what I'm saying. So surrounded by you, you're looking at her artwork and going,
no, there is no artwork.
What crappy work my daughter has done. Wow.
No, oddly enough, there is no artwork in here from her, which is
because it all sucks. You won't let her put it up. She said, "Daddy, should I hang this in my room?" And you're saying, "What the fuck are you thinking?" No,
you know what? No, she's actually really talented. It kind of irritates me that she's that good.
Now you're trying to get out of it. I got you. What you're doing? Yes.
No, the funny part is
very talented. She's very talented.
The funny part is weird that I've noticed, at least with my kids, like Trevor and her both are really, really talented at art.
Yeah.
Neither one of them really want to do it.
Yeah.
Man, if I had that kind of artwork, I would literally just be drawing all the time. But for some reason, neither one of them really have this weird interest to do it. But they're both so good at it. My daughter, I posted something on Facebook like a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. My daughter just like doodled something, and I looked at it and I was like, "What the hell?" And she just doodled that in 5 minutes.
I can relate because I'm real good at criminal activity, and yet I'm so legit.
Well,
so I can relate.
I feel you there. I feel the same, but are you sure that we've stopped? Maybe we're just that good.
That's that good, bro.
Exactly. So anyways, so talking about honesty. So I don't know, man. I'm one of those individuals that I love honesty. I prefer it. I almost get annoyed sometimes if I feel like somebody's holding back on me. Like if somebody's coming to me to tell me something and I can tell that there's an underlying truth that they want to say, but they're not. I'm almost like irritated. Like, dude, just get it out, man. Like, I don't need you to. I'm not the individual. Like my sense of self isn't fragile enough to where you're gonna crush me. You know, it might hurt my feelings. You know, it might make me sad for a minute, but I'll be fine. I'll get over it. I'd much rather you tell me though. Like, you're not gonna ruin my world. I just need you to be honest. Tell me what it is, and then. You know, we'll work on it and we'll go from there if it's even possible. But there are people that don't want that. Like my wife is one of the ones that when I met her, she loved my honesty and my sarcasm. As we've been together over the years, she's not as in love with it today as she was when she first met me.
Yeah.
And I think that's par for the course, right? Like we as couples in the world, typically what drives you to the person is the same thing that starts to drive you away from them at times. But
that sounded pretty philosophical.
It is. But anyways, so there are people who maybe won't do well with brutal honesty. So I think that's where the conundrum comes in, right? Is I want to be honest, but I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to ruin your day here. So how do I go about doing that?
Well, that's kind of why I recommended that we call it being honest instead of brutal honesty, because brutal honesty includes that level of honesty. When I think of brutal honesty, I think of honesty towards self, not to others. That's why it's called brutal, because you have to get past your own BS.
And I think that's necessary, by the way.
Yeah. So when I think when you're dealing with yourself, it should be brutal. Like when you're evaluating your own performance, your own ideology, your own actions, your own thought processes, your own behavior, then it requires brutal honesty, because in order you to be on the path that you think you're on, and to I guess absorb the blessings that are around you properly, it requires brutal honesty. However,
I like that distinguish, by the way.
Yeah,
I like that line.
Thanks. And then, but when you're talking with other people, to them, it should be empathically honest. Like, your empathy needs to be included in your honesty. Your understanding of who they are needs to be included. Like when you said, you know, you have thick skin or you're able to deal with it. Me too. I'm not fragile. I have thick skin. Yeah. I mean, I am I have a level of sensitivity,
Sure,
but I
well,
get over it so fast
yeah,
that yeah, it'll hurt me today, but by tomorrow I already forgot that you even hurt my feelings.
yeah.
Man. So I'm done with it. So I'd rather know as well. You know.
The only other thing I would add to that, I guess, as far as the brutal honesty to yourself,
Mhm.
I would caution people and to say that brutal honesty towards yourself is great, but it also has to be balanced out with some compassion for yourself. Right. And what I mean by that is just even myself. I've had times where I expect perfection out of
Yeah.
myself, regardless of the circumstances that I'm in.
Right.
And if I don't reach that level of perfection, no matter how unobtainable it might have been,
Mhm.
I will tear myself up about it. Like I
Right.
will expect greatness regardless. And I think that there's many other people out there who are guilty of that
Oh, okay.
and won't be compassionate enough to say, "Hey, man, you actually did a good job. You did your best, or whatever, even though you didn't reach whatever you thought you should have reached."
Well, let me ask you a question about that then. Would you think that
Sure.
that's really being honest? If you're overstepping the boundary on yourself and you're expecting perfection, is that truly honesty? Because
Well, one can argue no.
expecting more of yourself than what you're capable of doing at the moment.
Sure.
Um, I don't know if that's real honesty. I think
Well, no, it's not, and I think that
Mhm.
that's the point, right? Is I think people hear brutal honesty, and that gives them, for some of them, that gives them a pass to just destroy themselves. And it's
Right,
like, well,
right,
no, part of being honest is the other half of that equation, right?
right,
Like, you know, there are, maybe there was a failure. Sure, let's be honest about that
mhm,
failure.
right,
But there's context to that failure as well.
right,
And so
right.
you can't just do half the truth. You have to do the whole truth, right? And so, so a specific example that comes to my mind, doing health and fitness stuff over the years.
Mhm,
And I guess one could say it applies to addiction too, actually. But I would have clients over the years back in the day when I was doing it more full time. They would come to me and they would be struggling with weight their
mhm,
entire lives,
right,
and they've tried every email email recommendation. They tried every diet you can think of.
mhm,
Any gimmicky thing that you can imagine, they've given it a shot. Now, from an expert's perspective, as somebody who actually has an educational background in that,
mhm,
when I see these gimmicky things come, I immediately know that they're not a good idea. They're
right,
not sustainable. It's not based upon actual science. Like it's fantastic if you want to drop like really, really quick weight for a temporary period of time. Now, it's not good for long term fat loss. It just isn't. Um, but they don't have that background. And so what happens is they try this and it works momentarily, but
mhm,
it's not sustainable. So then the weight comes back. And typically when the weight comes back, it comes back more than what you lost. So if you lost 15, you're going to gain back 25.
mm,
And then the narrative that they walk away with is I suck.
yeah,
I can't stick to anything. I failed at this. I'm going to be fat my whole life. There's something wrong with me. They beat themselves up because in their mind, that's just being honest. Honestly, I didn't stick to this thing. I didn't do it. I gained all the weight back and I'm a loser. When in all reality, the whole truth, if you will, was
mhm,
no, you were given bad directions. The evidence or the thing that you were given to follow, nobody could have followed. It wasn't going to work from the get go, no matter how great
right,
you were. It just wasn't going to happen from a scientific perspective. However, from their perspective, that was the truth. And so it's like, no, is it true that you failed to achieve the goal that you set out?
mhm,
Sure. However, the odds were stacked against you and you had bad info. So anybody would have failed. And so have compassion for yourself that you got duped into a gimmick. You gave it your best. So if anything, you show that you do have the ability to stick to something. So if we find something that works, we've proven that you can stick to that. So that's what I mean by so that's a real world example. And even in the recovery world, right? Like,
mhm,
God, how many people who have time under clean time under in the books, I guess,
mhm,
but then relapse
yeah,
and then feel like they just lost all that time and their minds like, oh, I used, I'm a loser. I can't. Well, no, bro. Like it's hard. It's
mhm,
hard. You slipped up, but you're back here now. Like it's part of
right,
the journey for some people. And so it's the same context. So I wanted to make sure we put that caveat because I know
yeah.
there's a lot of people out there who think being brutally honest to themselves means just thrashing themselves as opposed to balancing it with reality too.
Yeah, and I think, part of the reason you have to discuss honesty is because we take the way other people treat us and the way that they interact with us and the way they respond to us so seriously that we often forget what we're putting out, right? We forget that sometimes we're obviously disingenuous. I know many of us are thinking something when we say something and then get called on it. And then we don't want to admit that we're called on it. I've been in a situation where I've said something to my wife, Dana, and she'll read right through it. But the way she says it is nowhere near a way that I want to admit that I just did that.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's no way I'm freaking going to admit this. You know what I mean? And I already know that I'm there, but now I got to go with it. I got to proceed forward because all of my brain is saying, you're dying on this mountain today, son. There's no retreat.
Yeah,
when realistically, the healthy thing to do is to rephrase, reword, explain, admit some of the part of what they're seeing in you, and then rephrase it to show that they didn't fully encapsulate your idea.
I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, but I do that all the time. And
I'm there in some moments, but I'm not there in other moments.
I laugh so often when she does that. I'll just look at her and I'll smile and I'll be like, okay, all right. So I can see how you got a piece of what that is. I said, but you took your issues or your insecurities and you added to what I was really saying. Yeah. So I'm here with it, but your level of insecurity or your own self-talk got you up here. I need you to put your emotions down to where I intended it to be.
What's funny is that just happened to me over the last weekend, by the way.
Yeah.
I won't go into what it was, but that just happened last weekend between her and I. There was a situation that I felt taken out of context. Like I saw where she was coming from. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, we forget they can even see your face. Look, man, if my wife puts on anything and asks me, how does this look? She knows the look of hunger in my eyes. She knows when I see food that's decent, and she knows when I see food that I want to eat. And I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to treat her like an object. I'm not trying to objectify my wife, but I'm saying women do like that look of hunger in your eyes when they want you to look hungry. You know what I mean? She doesn't wear certain clothing for me not to admire her or want her or desire her. She wears it so that when I look at her, I go, damn, Dana, you're beautiful. And so it's weird. She always laughs because she'll just like randomly like just be dressed down or something. And like at least 15 times while we're out, she'll catch me looking at her and she'll go, what? And I'll be like, damn, you look so good right now. She knows when I'm just so attracted to her at the moment. So I think what she does is categorize that clothing or that hair, the way she did it. And because she always says, you always like when I do my messy hair. I go, yeah, I must really like messy hair. Because dang it, every time you do that, you look so good. But she knows what she was wearing last time I did that. You know, you see what I'm saying? So and we'll just use this as an example, like new couples. I tell them all the time because I've been married. This is my 30th year married, Trinity. I don't know if you know that. So this June 19th will be 30 years married, and we've been together 32. So I always tell people, look, if there's a meal that it doesn't matter whether you're the male and the female in the relationship. If you cook something, or if your partner cooks something, and you eat it. And you don't like it early on in the relationship,
say something.
Say something.
Yeah, man.
As a person who's been in a relationship, I can only imagine that if I would have been a liar 30 years ago, I'd be eating shit that I didn't like this entire 30 years.
Well, that's where the honesty comes in, right?
Yeah, that's where I can always look at Dana. And Dana knows if it's mushy, baby, I don't care. Because what she'll do is she'll add spice to whatever's mushy because she'll know the spice might overtake the mushiness. I don't like mushy. I'm a texture eater. But if she throws spice in there, she might sell the Mexican.
Wait, you don't like mashed potatoes? You don't like mashed potatoes?
Mashed potatoes are intended to be mushy.
Okay.
But I don't like vegetables mushy. I like vegetables hard. Yeah. I like everything else hard. I'm not a casserole eater. I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't like all mushed together, So she knows that. But what I'm saying, if I wouldn't have been honest early on in the relationship, I'd be eating casseroles my entire life, brother. You know?
Yeah.
But at least now I'm able to look at it and she goes, Don't judge it before you try it. And she'll try to crisp it up as much as possible. Give me the edges, the part with the real fried cheese. It's hard.
Right.
It's trying to give me something hard.
Well, see, that's an example of how it fails both people, though, right?
Right.
By not being honest, it failed you in the sense of you don't get to eat something you enjoy, and it fails her because she doesn't get the desired outcome. She's making it because she wants you to enjoy it and like it, and she's not even getting that. She's getting a lie.
Yes.
And so that's why an example of being honest is important.
Yeah. From the get-go, fellas. From the get-go. And women, too. Don't look. Let me talk to the young ladies out there. You don't even have to be that young. But if you're a lady in a relationship.
Aren't they all younger than you?
Yeah, they're all younger. Don't like what he likes. Don't just because he likes it. Don't say, oh, sure, you can go out and hang out with your friends if you're sitting home resentful and angry about it. Don't do because that. Here's what you're gonna do. Here's what you're gonna remember this shit 20 and 30 years later. he's all he's gonna remember is, why didn't you say something then? That he doesn't know, he can't fight 20 or 30 years, what you've been holding on to the whole time. So please just be honest. He could take it right now. Because see, right now you have him in a magical place. He's willing to do whatever. In early on in the relationship, the guy's willing to do whatever. We do stupid shit to get you to like us. We're walking around like peacocks. We're changing our hair. We're whatever we do. We do anything to please you. 10, 15, 20 years, he ain't gonna do shit to please you. Everything he's doing, he's just doing because I've been doing it the whole time. They don't really change. Yeah. Okay. Don't expect us to magically change. So be real honest with yourself about what you like and dislike, and be real honest with him about what you like and dislike. At least have a conversation about it. It doesn't have to create a breakup or a big disaster, but at least you're being honest with each other about what you're okay with. Because if you're not okay with it today, trust me, you're not going to grow into being okay with it. You're not. Yeah. You're definitely not going to grow. You be okay with it later. If it bothers you today, it's going to extra bother you later on.
Yeah. The other thing that came to mind when you were saying that, so I don't know where this is going to take us, but the other thing that popped in my head when you were saying that was a message to the men about being honest. And for the men being honest, what I'm getting or I'm alluding to is we have this thing inside of us. It's called an ego. And oftentimes it won't allow us to say anything that's going to make that ego look less than. So for instance, men, if something hurt your feelings, be honest. Don't get mad. Don't get angry. No, be honest and be like, you know what? That hurt my feelings. That was something I had to learn myself. It took me a while. But I see it in my son now. It's like almost like an innate thing with us. My daughter has no problem showing her hurt feelings. My son, on the other hand, I see him, like I can watch it like a car crash. Somebody will say something and I can see it like all over his face. It hurts his feelings. Right. And instead of him saying, hey, that hurt my feelings, he gets mad and he lashes back. And I say to him, hey, buddy, it's okay. I understand what you're doing, but you got to tell it hurt your feelings. It didn't hurt my feelings, but it did, right. And so, men, if you're trying to get into a relationship, I'm telling you right now, save yourself a lot of heartache. Learn how to be honest when something hurt your feelings. Learn how to just be able to say that. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less of a man. Everybody has feelings. We all have sensitivities. Just be honest about it.
Yeah. Right.
In a nice way, right? You don't have to like flip out on somebody, but just be honest. But that hurt my feelings.
Right. In there's another part of honesty that I think we need to talk about, and it's that part that kind of prevents you from sometimes being successful in something you think you want to do. I don't think we're always honest with ourselves about what we really want out of life. Like we want a lot of reward, but with that comes, so you can't take the reward without the work that goes into it. And if you don't want to do the work to go into it, you don't really want that reward as much as you think you do. You just don't. There's people that hunger the rewards that you seek to a level you just cannot possibly understand.
Yeah.
They understand the time, the dedication, the sacrifice that it takes to get the same reward you think you want. See, the way you may want it is that you want to wake up one day and just have it delivered.
Yes.
That is a rarity. The people that get it delivered don't know how to keep it. Right. So we do that in relationships and we do that in physical items. If you get something freely given to you without ever learning how to put the effort towards receiving it properly, you'll lose it. because
Probably.
because the way you earned it, you'll never understand how to keep it. Whereas when you earned it, you knew the effort it took to get it. Therefore, you tend to maintain it a little bit differently.
Right.
If you don't believe me, buy a car for your child. Just buy them a car. I can if you don't truly let them understand how many hours and effort it took to get them that car, you'll tell them, did you change the oil? Did you check the oil? They'll be like, what? How do you do that? They won't.
Yeah.
I know because I was that kid, right?
Unless you get an electric one, it doesn't take
right,
long.
right. Look, I didn't know how to. I blew up my first engine, or not my first. It was probably my second or third car. I blew up the engine.
Ouch.
My dad would always say, "Did you put oil in? Did you put oil in?" I'm thinking, yeah. I just said yeah to shut him up.
Sure.
And then we were driving. I remember because it was my 18th birthday. 18th? Yeah.
God, did they have cars back then?
He was, the horse and the wagon and,
The buggy?
we were going to go pick up my drums. No, it was my 17th birthday. We were going to go pick up my drums for my birthday, and my dad said, "Well, let's all go in my car." I said, "No, I'm going to take my truck. I'm going to drive my truck and pick up my drums in my car." Okay, so he's in the car behind me, and me and my brother in my truck. And it was here in Colorado, by the way. Now that I'm here in Colorado,
nice.
It was here in Colorado Springs, and I'm driving, and what happens? Boom! Like I just got shot. I blew a rod. My dad just looked at me and goes, "You know what you're getting for your birthday, right?" I said, "What?" He goes, "A new engine. Happy birthday." Forget the drums. Back to the house. Done. So, sometimes you just have to be honest with yourself. I'm not ready for some of the gifts that I've been given. And I have to learn to appreciate what I have around me before I can keep attaining stuff, right? Before you keep gathering stuff, before you keep gathering friends and people and relationships and people that believe in you and people that love you, why don't you learn how to appreciate the ones that are around you right now? Because some of you are saying, "Oh, I just need new friends," or "I just need to find a guy that will, care for me," or a woman that will care for me, or whatever you're thinking about out there externally. You first have to appreciate what's around you and you're around you. Do you appreciate you enough? Do you value yourself enough first? Do you value the people that you have in your circle now enough first? Because if you learn how to appreciate that, then as new items come into your life, as new people come into your life, you may do better at maintaining what you need to maintain in order to keep that stuff and be a lot more grateful along the process.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I guess I'll piggyback to that, motivation, right? I used to have early on in my fitness world career or whatever, I was kind of green, so I didn't really know everything, and I would talk to people, and I learned how to take them at face value for when they told me why they were wanting to lose weight or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That quickly changed. As I got further into it, I quickly realized, let's just be honest, right? Those goals or those motivations sound phenomenal, but let's talk about what's really motivating you, right? And the reason why that's important, especially when they were wanting me to motivate them, I would always get these feel good answers, right? They would tell me, "Oh, I'm trying to get motivated because I want to see my kid graduate or something like that," which sounds phenomenal. And it's a great reason why, but your kid wasn't born yesterday. Your kid's 17 years old.
Right.
You haven't changed for the last 17 years. What's different now? So I would question: is that really the motivation? And to be honest with you, and that's the thing, is we all know, if we're being honest, we all know what the main motivation for many people to losing weight is. But for some reason, they don't want to say it. They would always give me a litany of other reasons, right? It was health reasons. It was all these things.
Right.
And I'm not saying that those don't matter. And I'm not saying that those weren't on the list.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not high enough on the list, it's not really what's motivating you, right? And by far, hands down, the number one reason, after I finally would sift through it all, the number one reason why people wanted to lose weight is they wanted to look better naked. Really, that's what it boiled down to. It was a vanity.
I was thinking that the whole time you said it. I was hoping that I was right.
Well, that's the number one reason, right? But they didn't want to be honest about that. I would tell them, "Hey, let's figure it." And for me, because that changes how I'm going to help motivate you. If you're paying me to motivate you, I got to know what motivates you. Right. And if your motivation is to look better naked, then it does me no good in bringing up your blood pressure numbers and all these other things. because you know that those are terrible, but you don't really care, right? Like you care, but not enough to really be a motivating factor.
Right.
So if I tell you to post, like on the refrigerator, post your blood pressure numbers, it's not going to stop you from grabbing the ice cream, because it's not. But if I tell you to post a picture of yourself, like in your underwear on the thing, it might motivate you enough to be like, you know what, I'm not really trying to get that ice cream right now, because it's an example. But my point is like, it's why it's important to be to be honest with what your actual motivation is. For me, my motivation, because I lost, I don't know, it was years ago now, I was like 90 some pounds I lost in a stupid short amount of time, which is what led me into the fitness world. But the reason why, it wasn't even that I wanted to look better naked, because at that point, even at that weight, I didn't have a problem with the opposite sex, if you will. Mine was competitive. I hate to lose. I hate it with a passion. And so there's a guy I worked with. I saw him face to face, and he looked phenomenal. He showed me a picture of what he looked like years before, and he was heavy. I'm like, wait, what? And this was before like Biggest Loser and all that. Like, I didn't even know it was possible for a human being to lose that kind of weight. Like, it was like a mythical idea. And so when he showed me, I was just like, hold up. Like, if you can do it, then I know I can do it. Like, hell no. Like, I took that as a personal challenge. And I killed myself, and I lost 90 pounds in like, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 months. I won a bunch of weight loss competitions. I went nuts. And then I opened my fitness company, and all the rest is history. But the only thing that motivated me, like at that age, I was still at risk for diabetes and blood pressure. I was at risk for all these things. But I was like 20 years old. I didn't care about any of that, right? I thought I was going to live forever. For mine, it was competitive. And so that's what motivated me. So that's why I joined competitions. That's why I talk trash to certain people, because I needed to stay motivated to make sure I do my thing. And so you have to be honest about what motivates you. And I think too often times we convince ourselves that we really want something, and for the reasons that we think we want them, when all actuality that's not true. And then we wonder why we can't get motivated to get out of bed and go do it. Well, because you're lying to yourself about why you want it in the first place. And so I think being honest about what motivates you is important as well.
That's very true. That's so very true. And then like with other people, like Trinity, like how do you get more honesty from people, you think? Like, what is it that inspires people to be honest with you?
Your response to it. I think if my wife wanted to come and be honest with me, and this actually happened, to be honest, now that I think about it, early on in our relationship, I wasn't good about being honest about having hurt feelings. So she would say or do something that would hurt my feelings, and instead of me just being honest with her and saying, hey, that kind of stung a little bit, that hurt my feelings when you said this, because this is what it made me think, or whatever. Instead of that, I would just get angry. I'd shut down, or I'd lash back, or I'd say something else, and it caused conflict. And then what it did do is it caused her to not feel comfortable to come to me and say certain things, because she's like, man, I'm not trying to have him blow up today, or I'm not trying to, piss him off or whatever. And so over the years, when I've learned how to be more comfortable with just being honest with myself and to her about, hey, it hurt my feelings, now she has no problem. Like, fast forward many, many years now, and she can come to me and tell me almost anything, and I'm okay. Well, let's work on that. Let's figure this out. But I think that's really what it is learning how to accept the criticism from the place it's coming from. And I think that's the hard part is separating the act from the action, or the actor from the action, right? Like we talked about it in forgiveness, meaning certain things are unforgivable, but the person who did those certain things are always forgivable. So the same concept. I should ask you a question right now while you're drinking. So the same thing is separating who that person is to you and what they mean to you from what just came out of their mouth, right? Because what just came out of their mouth is a sum of everything they've been through today, and everything that they're thinking, and all that. So it might not be the most skillful thing. Maybe they're upset about something else. Maybe they're stressed out. Who knows? Maybe that you hurt their feelings, and they're getting ready to say something. And if you take it at face value, it could hurt. It could ruin some things. But if instead you look at where they're coming from, be like, okay, well, what prompted that? Where'd that come from? So if you look at the core of it, it's easier then to not take things personal when somebody says something.
Right. And where does it fit spiritually to be honest? Like where is it, what's something that you think that we can practice to kind of, start small, because I mean, we're not asking people to all of a sudden go out and just like, hey, we got to have a discussion today. That meatloaf you've been serving me. I was watching this podcast today, and I decided to tell you it sucks.
Yeah.
And you just need to know that.
Well, you're not watching that podcast anymore. Stop listening to those guys.
Right.
No, to be honest with you, I think that's
so. How do you start along this path? How do you begin this path?
Well, by doing what we're already doing in certain areas, right? In the Eightfold Path, the second one is right intent. And the right intent is
frozen.
No, you're good. Well, you were frozen for a second, but so right intention is the second part of the Eightfold Path, and that is essentially stop coming from anger, greed, fear, lust, and start coming from love, compassion, kindness, generosity, right? Oh, we did lose you. Oh well, I'm gonna continue on then while he's doing whatever he's doing. So the point is we already do that in our day-to-day lives, right? Like if somebody, I always use the example of a puppy, right? If somebody calls you over to their house and wants to introduce you to the puppy that they just got, and it's a cute little puppy and it's rolling around on the floor, and you come up and you try to touch it, and it like nips at your finger and tries to bite you. Normally, your first reaction isn't to completely lose your mind and like try to throw the puppy across the room or yell at them, "You got a stupid puppy, I hate this thing." That's not normally our response. And if I ask why, the typical response you get was because it's a puppy, right? So you immediately think the intent behind what was just done is that it's a puppy. It's scared, doesn't know what's going on. I'm 100 times its size, and this big giant creature stuff. So you immediately empathize with the position that the puppy was in. You don't take it personal, and you understand the intent. Same thing with little kids. If a little kid were to come up and just punch you in your knee, you're not going to turn around and knock the kid out. You're instead going to like, "Hey, what are you doing?" You're going to try to reason with them and try to understand where they're coming from. And the same thing is with old people. Really, really old people can get away with almost anything. And for the same reason, intent. So animals, little kids, and old people, we're excellent in our ability to understand the intent. However, when it comes to our peers, regular Joe Blows walking around the street, our loved ones, the first thing we always say, they should know better, right? So when they do something that doesn't align with what we thought they should do, instead of trying to understand the intent, instead of trying to give them compassion and benefit of the doubt, the first thing we do is, well, they should know better. They did it on purpose. So now I'm going to unload on them. And oh, he's back now. There he is. So with that intent, with that concept, of they should know better, then you lay into them and you judge them and you get mad and you get angry. And so I think we got to practice more of the intent. So what do you think, Louis? I say that because I know you've heard nothing that I've said the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Basically what I was saying was with the second part of the Eightfold Path is right intention, meaning understanding the intent of where they're coming from.
Right.
The example I use is one I've always used about a puppy. Puppy bites you, you don't throw it across the room. You automatically understand it's a puppy. It was biting.
Mm-hmm.
So with your friend, your neighbor, your loved one, whoever it is, whatever they just said and did, here's an example. I don't remember who it was. I can't say the name anyways for anonymity, but when we were in Tropical, there was a guy in there who was just kind of a dick to everybody. Man, just mean and angry. Just like people had a problem with this person. And they came in my group one time, and I was talking to him, and he said something just rude and disrespectful. And immediately everybody looked at me thinking, "Oh God, what's he going to do?" And I handled it with just love and compassion, because my first thought wasn't, "How dare you say this to me?" My first thought was, "Damn, what do you got to be going through right now that makes you think that that's the way to answer this? Like, how bad does things have to suck for you at the moment to where you're going to lash out to a stranger that you don't even know?"
Right.
And so instead of coming from anger and everything else, I came from love and compassion. I'm like, "Damn, dude, I've been there. I've had moments where I've been going through some things and I lashed out to people around me, and I don't want to be judged on that, right? Like, I've had moments where I've been mad at various things, and then I have to go do something, and maybe I give a little bit more attitude to whomever it is I just interacted with, and it wasn't their fault. I couldn't process what just happened in time to not take it out on them.
Right.
And so when that person said and did what they were doing, my first thought was just love. My first thought was like, "Damn, dude, Like, I'm sorry, whatever you're going through, I'm sorry. Like, let's talk about it. And so that, I think, is something we can do today, is try to understand where the other person's coming from. Try to understand the intent behind what's happening.
And, and there is a danger to that, and the danger is that you might be wrong. Because if you think their intent is malicious or mean or harmful, you may be wrong. And I'll give you an example. I've given Dana, my wife, so much credit for helping me turn into the man that I am, because early on, especially, just by some of the things that she said to me, and because I was willing to hear her out and to please her, I wanted to please her so bad, and I wanted her to be part of my life so bad that when she would say these things, I let them soak in a little bit and marinate. And some of the things were like when I would get pulled over, she helped me realize that my instinct was to be rude, belligerent, difficult to the law enforcement officers. And mind you, I truly thought I was being cooperative.
Right.
But in my head, all that I had in my head is the resentment, the anger, the past relationships with authority figures, and I incorrectly judged their intent.
Sure.
To be something based on the color of my skin, my culture, whether I thought it was valid that I got pulled over or not. Like, I just threw so much shit on it that it wasn't about the simple situation. And I offered them no freedom to be anything but perfect. Like, they had to be stellarly perfect in order for this situation to go well. That put me in a great deal of danger, especially back then. This is before the Rodney King days. So when I would get pulled over, so that means all the times I got pulled over in LA or Texas or Arizona or the states where I put myself in bad situations. Hopefully I can still be heard, because I see the little thing going around. So I don't know if I'm on or not. Okay. That means I had something to do with how those situations played out. And then I think about all the poor young men that accidentally do what I did, but they kept going and put themselves in a harmful situation. And we end up with deaths. We end up with bad situations. And so I think part of being honest is we have to be honest that we do bring something to the table. We bring our baggage to the table. We bring our ideologies to the table, and we project them onto others and unrealistically expect them to be perfect on their end, and don't take any ownership to what we're putting out. And that, I think, is wrong. I think that we think it's okay that we can dress however we dress, and yet you're supposed to only think pure thoughts. That we can behave however we behave, but you're expected to only treat me with respect. That I'm allowed to say whatever I say, but man, you better never use certain words against me. And that, I think, is a level of honesty that we have to absorb. And we have to teach our children that, no, you are 100% more responsible for you than everyone else is for you. You do yourself the most damage. You put yourself in the worst situations. You disrespect others more than anyone can disrespect you. You disrespect yourself more than others than anyone can disrespect you. You've lied to yourself more than anyone has ever lied to you. You've said mean things to you more than anyone has ever said, and you've constantly forgiven you. And you constantly woke up again and started a new day with you. So allow everyone else to at least have a one-off.
Yeah.
We're all allowed to have a one-off. Maybe I didn't see you when you walked by and you said hi. So no, I didn't snub you. I was in my own world.
Yeah.
And we deal with that like with celebrity figures, right? We have celebrity friends and constantly when I hear people say, oh yeah, I met him once and he was an asshole. I'm thinking, so you met him at a restaurant. You have no idea what he was doing and why he was doing it. You wanted something from the person, whatever, and you gauged your entire understanding of that individual from that 2-second moment. Well, let me tell you something. If you put me to that same high standard, I guarantee I'm an asshole then. because I've done that. I've accidentally when people say, hey, and then they get you out of your fog, and you're like, oh man, I'm sorry. What was that? All right, Jake, what was that? What'd you say? I didn't hear you, man. I was listening. Constantly. So imagine if you put yourself under the same microscope you put everybody else under. You got to be honest with ourselves. That, man, I am not as perfect as I expect the world to be, and I judge the world a lot more than I allow them to be imperfect. And that's part of the honesty that I think that it is important for our spirituality to be healthy and not to walk around so angry and bitter and expect so much of others, man.
We're oftentimes everybody else's judge but our own lawyer, right?
Yeah.
We'll judge them for what they did, but when it comes to what we did, we got all sorts of justifications, context, and what we meant. Well, that other person does too,
Yeah.
And I think so. While you were talking, one of the ideas I came up with it was just a tool, right? And you and I've said it numerous times. I'm probably going to steal your little phrase here in a second. One of the tools you can use to learn even how to be. See, we all think that we're these like weird closed books that nobody can read us. I got bad news for you. You're not. Everybody tells you everything that they're thinking and what they're feeling if you listen. And the problem is we don't listen, right? You should listen more than you talk. And when I say listen more than you talk, to use his phrase, I don't mean, press pause. I mean, press record, right? So too many times when we think that we're listening, what you're really doing, and if you're honest with yourself, what you're really doing is waiting for your turn to talk. Right? They're talking. They said something. Right. They're in the middle of trying to explain something that's important to them, and you're listening until you hear that one word or that one phrase that you didn't agree with, that you didn't like, or whatever it is, and you honed in and locked in on that. So now you're no longer inputting. You're no longer taking in. Now you're just waiting. You're being respectful. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm not going to go off. I'm just, okay, I'm going to wait. You go ahead and finish what you have to say. Right. And I'm not going to hear anything after that one phrase that said something to me. Right. And the second you're done talking, when it's mine, now I'm going to lay into you off of that one phrase or that one word at the moment that I stopped listening. So I don't know anything that you said after that. I didn't try to understand the whole point that you were trying to make. That one word or that one phrase that you said pissed me off, and now I'm locked in on that. Right. I think we do entirely too much of that to the extremes, right? Especially in the political world. If somebody on both sides of the equation, if somebody says wokeism or something, or somebody says this, you immediately lock in on that. Right. And then you've already summed up who that person is, right, everything about them, and you're no longer listening. They could be the greatest human being on the planet that could actually help you further your cause. You're going to miss it all out because you focused in on one thing and you stopped listening. And so listen more than you talk. Right. Listen to what people are saying to you. Don't listen to the exact words. Listen to the idea. What are they trying to express to you? Where are they coming from? And I think if we did more of that, then it's a lot easier then to understand their intent, because they're going to tell you their intent, whether you realize it or not. We as human beings, we wear it on our sleeves, man. We think that we're like, you're unique just like everybody else, right? Like, we all think that we're this isolated little thing. I think I think the number 7, right? There's like 7 personality types in the world or something. It's either 5 or 7. I don't remember which, but bottom line is we all fit into one of those. We don't think we do. You do. There's idiosyncrasies that are native to only you. Sure. Like he doesn't like mushy food. Okay, great. But that's not who he is. That's not what motivates him in life. Right. That's a little thing. And so we all have those little things, and we think that that's who we are. So we think that we're so impossible to read, but you're not. If somebody knows what to pay attention to and knows how to listen to you, you tell everything. And so learn how to be that person. Listen more than you talk. And then it'll be easier than, number one, to be honest with them, because you know where they're coming from, and it can be honest to yourself as well. So anyway, I think we're getting ready to wrap things up here. I know your internet looks like it's fading quickly.
I don't know why, because I get the extra enhanced internet.
I will say that it went out at a perfect time. I was in the middle of like a little monologue there. And so if it had to go, that was a great time to go.
Well, it was fully intentional.
There you go. And I believe you're being honest. So
yeah, they're probably listening to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Mr. and Mrs. Marriott.
Right.
Listen. I love that we were able to discuss this today, because I think honesty is one of those things that it requires a lot of practice.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get off track with honesty. It's very easy to validate your dishonesty, or our dishonesty, I should say. But it's still something that you can always come back to and work on, regardless of where you're at with it. You know, it requires daily practice. It requires daily understanding of it. It allows you to accept others. It allows you to accept yourself. And trust me, your accepting of others starts with accepting yourself. If you're, for instance, there's people right now that are very angry and they're bitter and they're resentful and they're hateful, especially, you know, you brought up the political stuff. And so you have all these predetermined judgments of the other side. So you're walking around already angry and hateful, and you're not really admitting it. Yet you're probably thinking you want unity, but they have to act first. You probably think you're a person of love and want love, but they have to love you first. Or you probably thinking that you're a respectful person, but they have to respect you first. And that you're just not being honest. That's not honest. That's you're coming into it where, you know, you have to do it, but I don't, you know, because I'm already doing it. You know, I didn't start this, you know, and you know, if you're in a relationship, you probably can really relate to this. Have you ever been in a situation, Trinity, where you are right? You can kill this victory. You got this victory in this particular argument. However, your partner felt like they were losing. And because they felt like they were losing the argument, they took it back to an incident that you cannot defend and blame that. And bring that into this argument. So therefore, you can't win this argument because you still have yet to pay full penance for that one. And that is how we behave as humans. We do that all the time. That person cannot possibly be right today because they were wrong yesterday or last year, or 10 years ago, or 1,000 years ago. It doesn't matter. When you operate under that mindset, it'll affect you out there. And trust me, it's going to affect you in your own bedroom. You have to be willing to discuss a conversation and things that are relevant in this moment. Now matters more. Not yesterday, not all that other shit. We have to be able to let things go. We have to be able to forgive. But most importantly, we have to let go for us. We have to forgive us. And if you want forgiveness, you have to give it. You don't ever have to wait for the world to act a certain way before you act a certain way. No, you have to do it. And if the world never does it, that's fine, but at least you're doing it. But so many of you walking around as if you're the only trustworthy person in the world. You're the only good person in the world. You're the only one deserving of breath and life in the world, other than puppies. No.
Yes.
Just be honest with yourself that you're getting a lot of what you're giving out. You know, and if that's what you're fishing with, you can't blame what the stream is giving you. You can't blame what the lake is providing for you, man. You're fishing with that bait. That's what you get with that bait. You know what I mean? Certain hooks get certain fish. Certain lures get certain fish. That's just the way. I don't know how to explain mathematics to you. Math is real, and you can't define mathematics and go like, oh, I expect to win every time. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to have a lot of swings and misses in order to get the home runs. That's just the way it works. And the quicker we teach our children to accept that, they're not going to throw their controls. They're not going to freak out and bash their heads against the walls. They're not going to need the freaking mental health days. The only reason they need mental health days and anti-anxiety medication is because for some reason we're trying to teach them that everything is crumbling if they don't get this one thing that they wanted or get the situation they wanted. Because the world is such a bad place. No, it's just part of the deal, man. You get 50 no's to get one yes, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Salespeople know it the best, man. Salespeople need to teach all the rest of us how to deal with rejection, because salespeople know how to deal with rejection better than anybody on the planet. You know? Anyway, I'll go practice some honesty. And if I'm being honest, I really do like cold weather. I just don't like being cold. You know what I mean? And that's a hard thing. I love the briskness and the coolness and the breeze. And I love looking at the snow in the mountains. And then I go outside and I go, oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, My wife can attest. I am a different human being when I'm in the cold weather and in the mountains. Like, I'm just different. I'm not the same person. It does something to me.
I'll try to bring some home for you, man. I'll get some snow in a jar, and I'll see if they let me bring it back on a plane. I'll bring some snow back for you.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, but thanks for letting me to do this show from Denver today, man. It's cool out here. I'll be back, before Friday's show.
Right on. Yeah, so, well, first of all, before I give my wrap up, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you feel so inclined, hit that little like button or subscribe or whatever it is that you're looking at. Share it with people. Helps us out, gets the word out there for more people. As always, you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch under Dope and Dharma. And then you can also obviously follow us on social media. Those are our @, at the Dope Doctor, at the Dharma Guy. Yeah, so honesty, it's important. Honesty is the best policy. It really is. If you define honesty as being just mean and rude, then you have to reevaluate your definition of honesty, because honesty can also be compassionate and loving. It's just kind of the way your approach is. And I think that we all have to practice being honest with ourselves as far as what your true motivation is, what you really thought about something, why you're really doing something. Too oftentimes we convince ourselves of things that are just not true. And then being honest with other people. If somebody comes and they're behaving a certain way, be honest with them. If they're your friend, don't enable them. Be honest with them. At the end of the day, that people we tend to appreciate honesty more than we do people blowing smoke up our ass. We might say differently, but at the end of the day, that's who we reward the most with our time. Is somebody we know that is going to be real with us and give us the actual knowledge here, or whatever it may be. Just remember, it can be done with compassion. It can be done from a loving place as well. So, anyways, I think that's all I got for today. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As he just said, it looks like we'll be doing our We the Middle show on Friday, which will be a mix of politics and sports. So if those interest you, be sure to tune in.
We got a California actor or something like that on the show. We're doing it 1 hour early.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I forgot about that. I'm glad you said that. You have to probably remind me again between now and Friday. So, anyways, all right, that's all we got. So now that you know better, do better. Peace.